And I think we are live. Good evening, everybody. Thank you very much for joining us for October's live Q&A. As always with these live sessions, please let me know in the chat if you can hear me and you can see me okay. And we're going to dive into the usual start to these Q&As, which is going through all of the questions that I've been asked in advance over on the Board Game Geek Guild. If you are watching us live and you do have a question for me, please put it in the chat. Start with the word question in capitals, and at some point during the Q&A, which is usually about 45 to 60 minutes in, we will get through to those live questions. But for now, I am just going to answer, all of the questions that we've been asked in advance over on the Board Game Geek Guild. So if you are not a member of the Board Game Geek Guild and you want to be, you can join up guild number 2258. And every month, about a week before these Q&As, I will post a link on there asking for questions in advance. That's intended for the people who want to ask me a question, but they can't make these live Q&As, or people who can make the live Q&As who just have a question and they want to get in there first. So before we start, just want to say a big thank you, as always, to all of my Patreon supporters. This video is not sponsored in any way, and all of the advertising and revenue, as always, goes to charity. And I'm only able to do that thanks to the support of the Patreon campaign. So let's dive in with the first question that I've been asked in advance, which is from Adrian. If you had to form a team of 5 board game celebrities, designers, influencers, or artists to take part in team events, Euro board game competitions, who would you choose? Now, what I normally like to do a few hours before these Q&As is go through these questions in advance. However, we've both had one heck of a day today. We've had absolutely no free time whatsoever. It's been a busy day and quite stressful, and I haven't had a chance to look through these questions in advance. So I'm going to have to think of something on the fly. We're talking about a Euro board game competition, 5 board game celebrities to put together. Now, for me, they've given us the option of designers, influencers, or artists. I'm going to go so far to say that I could probably pick 5 designers that would be better at board games than any influencer that I know. No disrespect to those people out there making YouTube videos, but there are a number of designers who I think are extremely clever and extremely good at games. And I'm probably going to upset some people here. And I'm not sure I'm going to be able to pick 5. The first 3 that come to mind. Maybe even the first 4. Yeah, probably the first 4. So you've got Isaac Childress, you've got David Turksey, you've got Vlada Chvátil, and you've got Vital Lacerda. And if I'm missing anybody, please let me know. And again, apologise if you are a games designer and you are watching this and I haven't thought about it. These are the first 4 that come to mind. All of these people have their brains work in a certain way, especially, no disrespect to Vital, but especially Isaac and David and Vlada, in that they are able to, like in The Matrix, where Neo sees all of the patterns falling and is able to read the code. That's what these people are like. And I've had the pleasure and the opportunity to teach these people games, and I've seen how their brains work, and it's on another level. And you can see that in the games that they design. So I think those people would be the people who I'd take with me on a team if it was a Euro board game competition, because they would be able to analyse what's needed in the game in order to do well at the game. Now, whether they actually do well at the game is another matter, but they're able to at least analyse it. Who have I missed? I'm trying to think of other designers. I mean, there's other designers whose games I know and play really well. Stefan Feld, Alexander Pfister. There's lots of other people out there who are great designers, but I don't have any experience of really sort of sitting down with them and playing a game with them and seeing how their brain works. So, yeah, there's a few of them. It's not 5, but again, brain's not working properly. Next question from Chad. At this point, most Euro games are using old mechanisms, worker placement, area majority, etc., in new and interesting ways. What's the last Euro game that you played that featured a new, unique mechanic? So I think this got asked last month. I think something similar got asked last month. Not exactly this. And I remember I was struggling to find an answer. And then somebody reminded me in the chat, The Mandalorian. So I think the question was, what games have you played recently which have actually had a new interesting mechanism that you kind of haven't seen before? And The Mandalorian was definitely one. The way that the card play works in that is really good. But that's not a Euro game. So saying that I didn't have much time to prepare for this Q&A, I actually did see this question a couple of days ago, and I had an answer in mind, and I didn't write it down. And I've forgotten what that game was. Now, what game was it? It was a game that I played recently, which did something in a clever way. I will try and see if it comes back to me. Yeah, let's go through the games that I've played recently and see see which ones are those. Bear with us a minute. What I'm going to do is I'm going to very quickly look at my played list on BGG, because I think it is one that I've played recently. Let's go to by calendar. Nope, not by calendar. By game. There you go. Right, let's have a look at this, and let's go maybe back a month before. Right, so let's have a look at this. Yeah, okay, so these are all of the games. Nothing here is jumping out to me. I'm trying to think. There was definitely something, but yeah, I couldn't remember what it was. No, I'm looking through the list of all of the games that I've played in the last 6 or 7 weeks, and I can't think of anything. So apologies for that. I'm sure there is one. I'm sure there is a Euro game that I have played recently, which I felt used mechanisms in a different way. Was it Daitoshi? Yes, it was Daitoshi. Daitoshi I did a live playthrough of on Friday. So if you're interested in seeing that, it's on the channel on Friday. And the bit that I liked about it, which I don't think I've seen in other games, but basically in this game you are exploiting the land in order to gain certain resources and certain benefits. And there's 4 different terrain types in the game. And if you exploit the same terrain type more than once, then you anger the yokai. And there's 4 different terrain types. So there's 4 different types of yokai that you can anger. And depending on which type you anger, they destroy a bit of your factory. So each player has a factory board, and bits of it will not completely stop working, but they will get worse. So this isn't one of those games where you're like, oh, you must absolutely do this, otherwise you're going to be screwed. It's a, well, you could do this, but if you do, the yokai are going to get angry and they're going to destroy this part of your factory, which is going to make that particular thing harder. And I really liked that. It was this, as I say, it wasn't just a, you know, if you don't do, or if you do this, if you anger them too much, then you completely lose something. It was, well, no, you can still do it, but it's more expensive. So I liked that. That was it. That was Daitoshi. I knew I'd remember in the end. Right, next. Next question from Neil. If you were limited to attending only one convention or gaming event per year, not including GridCon, which would you choose to attend and why? This is actually a fairly easy answer. And I've spoken about before the fact that it's very difficult to compare like a local UK convention, which I go to and I play games at and really enjoy it because I get to play games for 3 days, and something like Essen, which is 7 days away. I don't get to play any games. It's absolutely intense, and most of it is work for me. But it would have to be Essen. Essen, since I went the first year 25 years ago, has always been very special. And especially this year, I've had an absolute blast at Essen this year. And it was just utterly fantastic. So it would have to be Essen. That would be one that I would go to. And why? I feel it's the most rewarding event for me, personally. But also it's probably the most exhausting event, personally. But yeah, it's exceptionally good. Next question from Vanyo. We're on to the important questions now. Ketchup or mayonnaise? The answer to that is both. So here's the thing. Years and years and years ago, I decided to have ketchup and mayonnaise together, and I mixed it together. And I thought I'd invented something new. And it turns out that I hadn't invented something new. What's it called? Somebody in the chat tell us what it's called, because Vicky can't remember, I can't remember, but it's actually a thing. And I didn't know it was a thing. So it was one of those things that I thought of doing one day. I mixed it together and it was really nice. And yeah, so for me, both. Whenever I'm out in a restaurant or anything like that and I have chips, I have ketchup and mayonnaise together and I mix it together. It's not Thousand Island sauce. It's definitely not Thousand Island sauce. It's definitely got a name. Somebody Google it and tell me what it's called. I'm sure it has a name, but I can't remember what it's called. Mayo chup. Yes. No, I'm not making it up, am I? It does have a name. It does have a name. Anyway, Gavin, does the shape of a biscuit influence your enjoyment of it? Now, that's quite a deep philosophical question, Gavin. I don't think so. I don't think it does. But it's a good question. But yeah, I mean, I think I prefer the ones that are not round, but I don't quite know why. Next question from James. What are the games that you still enjoy playing from years past that seem to have dropped off people's radars, but you think gamers should still try? You can't pick Mage Knight. Oh, so the question is, what are the games that you still enjoy playing from years past that seem to have dropped off people's radars, but I think that gamers should still try? I tell you what, James, what we're going to do is we're going to convert that question into a question on the guild. And James, in fact, if you don't mind posting it yourself, because normally Chrissy does that, but James, if you're watching, and I think you're watching, if you could post that yourself, just go onto the guild and say, as discussed in this month's live Q&A, and basically I want everybody to answer it. So give it 5 or 10 minutes if James is in the chat. Have you seen James in the chat? James might not be in the chat. Okay. Yeah, give it a little bit of time, and on the guild, on Board Game Geek, guild number 2258, there will be a question appearing on there because I want to know what other people think. We're looking for games that you still enjoy playing from years past that people don't talk about very much, but you think gamers should actually still try. Mage Knight is one of those. Although, to say people aren't talking about it anymore, Mage Knight is still quite popular. Mage Knight does still get played. There are still people playing it. James is here. Excellent. Right. Thank you very much, James, if you can do that. And as I say, give it 5 or 10 minutes, head on over to the guild, and then in a few days' time, I will go on there and prod me if I forget, because I probably will, and I will have a think and see what I can think of. Being the content creator that I am, there is always a tendency for me to cover newer games rather than go back to older games. So it is tricky, but that said, there are games from 10 to 15 years ago which I still enjoy playing. I'm just going to pick one off the top of my head. Aura et Labora. I don't think many people are talking about that game. I think it's still a fantastic game. I don't know how old it is now, but I think it's a very good game. Next question from Stephen. Will I be covering the new Stefan Feld City Collection games, Chichen Itza and Valencia, as well as Kathmandu? So, it's interesting because when the City Collection was announced, I have a good relationship with Queen Games, and it was discussed with me that I would produce a series of videos for each of the games. And the plan was that I would do a playthrough video for the games when they are going on Kickstarter. And then when the game is finished and it's finally out, I will do the official how to play videos for all of the games in the City Collection. Like pretty much every agreement that I've made in the board game industry and hobby, it's not a written binding agreement or anything like that. I've not signed any contract or anything like that. But you may have noticed that I have not done a how to play video for the latest 2 games, which have just come out, which is Nassau and Kathmandu. And those games are out. I found out, I wasn't sure when they were out, but those games are actually out. And Queen Games haven't actually asked me to create a how to play video for them. I spoke to them at Essen, and they are in discussions about whether they want to carry on having me do any how to play videos. And I can understand why. There is a cost associated with it. And to be honest, those videos have been underperforming. I've put a lot of work into those videos to make them as good as I can do, as I always do with my videos. But the ones that I have done, the how to play videos that I've done for the City Collection games, they haven't been performing at all well. The views on those have been quite substantially lower than a lot of my other how to play videos. So I can understand from Queen Games' point of view, if they're saying, what's the point in us paying Paul to make these videos if not many people are watching them? So they may have had a rethink of that. And the new games, Chichen Itza and Valencia, are on Kickstarter right now. But they didn't contact me and ask me to do any kind of playthrough video for those. So I hope I've not upset anybody at Queen Games. I don't think I have. But yeah, I am currently not involved with any of their games moving forward, which in some ways I'm a little disappointed about because I love Stefan Feld as a games designer, but also it's not like I'm short of work and I've got plenty of other things to do. So yeah, I know that Tom Heath from Slicker Drips, who was in the chat earlier on, and if you are still here, Tom, happy birthday for earlier this week. Tom has done or is doing a playthrough of Chichen Itza, which was originally described as going to be a Stefan Feld Ameritrash style game with miniatures. They have since got rid of the miniatures and replaced them with standees, but it has roll for combat, so it's a very different game from what he normally kind of does. And when I heard all those things about it, I'm like, I'm not sure I'm not gonna enjoy this. But anyway, that's where we are with those videos. I don't even have the latest 2 games in the City Collection. So I have my City Collection up there, but those 2 games are currently missing from it. Right, next question from John. What type of vacation stroke holiday travel experiences do we enjoy the most? For example, big cities stroke small villages, cultural, history, architecture, culinary, museums, sea, sun, rest, spa, read, etc. Well, we have some similarities in what we like on holiday, and we have some differences. First of all, neither of us are big city people. We will go, like when we went to the Czech Republic, we did spend a couple of days in Prague, and then we spent the rest of the time traveling around the Czech Republic in a car. I can't really not go to the Czech Republic and I can't really go to the Czech Republic and not go to Prague. So do like to go to these capital cities, but I'm not a city person. The whole idea of wandering around a city and like going shopping or anything like that, no. What I will personally look for in these cities is like the architecture, especially when you're going around, places in Italy, Florence, and things like that. Is the architecture of the cities and things like that. Culinary, I don't think we really go anywhere. We're not really museum-y people, although we do go to a lot of museums. I wouldn't have said I'm like an art gallery type person, but yeah, definitely museums, because as I say, if we're not really shopping people, then when you go to these cities, I can't think of anything else there is to do really. In terms of the resting, the spa and the reading, that's Vicky's kind of thing. She would love to just have, time away, going to a spa, resting, reading, things like that. Personally, I would get bored quite easily doing that kind of thing. So the whole idea of a beach holiday where you just go and sit on a beach for 2 weeks is like my worst nightmare. So when we went away on honeymoon, that was a little bit of a change for me. But at no point did we actually really sit on the beach. We went snorkeling. We did a bit of, pedalo to sort of things. Yeah, we did sort of activities, but it wasn't like activities all day. There was a fair amount of sitting by the pool. I was reading comic books or graphic novels. Vicky was reading her book and things like that. Yeah, hopefully that answers the question. Next question from Frank. After I visited Essen, what was my biggest surprise, disappointment and disaster? And please don't say Deutschbahn. So biggest surprise. Because I put so much into planning and organising Essen, I don't really think there is that much that came as a surprise. There's maybe 2 things. 2 things that I can think about. The first one was I went to the press event on the Wednesday, and I walked into the press event, which is where a lot of publishers have tables where they're showing off their new games to members of the press. And I went in there, and one of the first things that I saw was League of Six. Now, League of Six is a game designed by Vladimir Suchy. It's his first published game, as far as I know. It came out in 2007. And I think League of Six is fantastic. I have always said that League of Six is a very, very good game. And I was very surprised to see that there is a new version of it. A Czech publisher, Dino, I think it is, they publish it. So that was a surprise. That was a surprise because it was something that I wasn't expecting. So that was a big surprise. And the other surprise was, and if I had time to follow more people on social media, I would have done. But Tim Chuon, who does amazing videos in the board gaming hobby, I've watched Tim's videos for years, and I am an absolute fan of his production values and just everything about it. And Tim actually came to see me, and it was a surprise because I didn't know he was going to be there, and it was just a real pleasure to speak to him. So yeah, they are probably my two big surprises from Essen. In terms of disappointment, I'm trying to think. I'm trying to think if there was anything about Essen that was disappointing. It's tricky. The only thing that comes to mind is, as many of you will know, as I've spoken about a lot over the years, is that my anxiety issues that I have often prevent me from sleeping. Even no matter how tired I am, I will be lying in bed wide awake, even though I've had hardly any sleep in 3 or 4 days, because the anxiety and the adrenaline keep me going. This year, I didn't have that. This year, I felt more relaxed than normal, and I was a lot less stressed, and I was a lot less anxious about just generally everything. And yet, I still wasn't able to sleep at night. And that was really disappointing with me, because I'm like, look, if I'm lying here awake because I've got anxiety or something like that, then I can understand it. And finally, I go away and I don't have that anxiety, and the bed was comfortable, and the room wasn't too warm, and the person I was sharing with wasn't snoring too much. And I was like, okay, so why can't I sleep? And it was just, so I was disappointed in that. In terms of disaster, there wasn't really anything. There wasn't really anything that was a disaster at all. We had an interesting journey there on the train, but that wasn't Deutsche Bahn's fault. That was our fault, and we decided to take a different route. And then we got on the wrong train, then we got on the right train, and then we missed the stop because we were busy playing a game. We had a really eventful journey to get to Essen, but that was nobody's fault but our own. Right, next question from Bart. All this talk about Civolution is fine and dandy, but have you ever played Stefan Feld's It Happens? Now, if you have access to the internet right now, go onto Board Game Geek and look up a game called It Happens from Stefan Feld. Now, I remember finding out about this game many, many, many years ago, and I've managed to put it out of my memory. Because if you look at this game, which was published in 2010, it does not look like a Stefan Feld game. So I haven't played it. It looks like some kids' game from the front cover of the game. And I am curious if anybody watching this live, or if you're watching this back afterwards, let me know if you have played It Happens from Stefan Feld. Because yes, I've not played it. I don't know anything about it. And there is a picture of a tile which looks very rude. It's probably not supposed to look like what it does look like, but anyway, that's that. So no, I haven't played that, Bart. Yeah, he says, I'm not even sure if Stefan Feld himself remembers this game. Right, next question from Miguel. Okay. If you could choose one key lesson from your time in the board game industry that you're comfortable sharing publicly, which had the most profound impact on your personal growth and life, what would it be? For context, Miguel works as an integral coach. He's always curious about how board gaming and personal development can be mixed together in a fun and powerful way. So, I'm not sure I'm going to be able to answer that one correctly. Let's have a think. First of all, you're curious how board gaming and personal development can be mixed together in a fun and powerful way. I would say, if we're talking about key lessons that I've learned from working in the board game industry, I don't think they are specific to the board game industry. I have learned a lot about myself, and I've learned a lot of things that I'm good at and a lot of things that I'm bad at. As soon as you And we were talking about this the other day about whether I would actually ever be able to return to a normal job. And Vicky's shaking her head. I at my stage in life, where I am right now, having been out of a regular job for the last 10 years, I think the shock of doing a normal job, as in getting up in the morning, having breakfast at a specific time, getting dressed into a specific work uniform, traveling to a place of work, if that's still a thing, and then actually working there, I would find that so disruptive to the lifestyle that I now have, that I have created for myself, that I think it would be too much of a shock to the system. Now, if I was still in my 20s or early 30s, I wouldn't be ruling it out. I would be saying, look, I might have to do this. I might have to return to a normal 9 to 5 job or whatever. And it will be a shock, but I will have to do it. Where I am in my sort of mid 50s, I've reached the point in my life where this is it. And I'm comfortable with that. And I don't feel that I'm ever going to need to do that again. And as such, mentally, I've known that I'm never going to return to that particular working environment. And for anybody who thinks that it must be living a life of luxury to, not have to get up at a specific time and not have to put a suit on to go to work or anything like that, it's not quite that easy. I will be sometimes still working at 11 o'clock on a Sunday night or midnight on a weekday because I've just got stuff going on. And I will quite often be up at 7 o'clock on a Sunday morning and I'll do 3 hours of work because there's stuff that needs to be done. So yeah, it's not the dream job that a lot of people think it is. And a lot of that is down to self-discipline. Going back to the question, I haven't answered the question. I've rabbited on for a bit, but I'm not sure about a key lesson for my time in the board game industry. There are lots of things that I've learned, but there's lots of things that I kind of already knew going into it, and they're more life lessons rather than key lessons about the life in the board game industry. It's an interesting one, and I'm more than happy if you want to ask me that question another time somewhere else where I might be able to have a bit more of an answer. But right now I can't think of, one key lesson. Anyway, moving on. Next question from Kat. I've noticed that within the channel of Gaming Rules that you've never had a video on the greatest board game ever made. Well, Mage Night. I mean, I do have videos on Mage Night. Apparently it's not Mage Night. Apparently it's Brass Birmingham. And Kat said, which surprises me, as I thought it would be your cup of tea. I see that you've done Brass Lancashire, but no love for Birmingham. Well, shock horror, I have not played Brass Birmingham. It is the #1 game currently ranked on Board Game Geek, but I haven't played it. I'm curious about it because a lot of people that I know say that it is better than Brass Lancashire, but I have only played Brass Lancashire twice, maybe 3 times. So, yeah, I like it, but I wouldn't have said that Brass Lancashire was anywhere near my top 10. Probably not even in my top 50. Sorry. But, so whilst I am curious about Brass Birmingham, I'm not desperately keen to try it. And I think if I did try it, it might be better than Brass Lancashire for me. I don't know. But it's still likely to not break into my top 50. I personally, that's my thoughts on it. Next question from Thomas. Is there any kind of community amongst content creators? And if not, do you wish there were some kind of community? So the small pockets of communities within the board game content creator world. Certainly if you look at the American content creators, you will find a number of them collaborate on stuff. They fly across the country to join each other for live streams and things like that. We don't do that so much in the UK, do now and again, but I'd love to see more. I would really love to see more of a community of content creators. I've become friends with a lot of people and I am in contact with a lot of the UK content creators on a regular basis. And I would like to think that I'm friends with them, and I will quite often, well, not quite often, but maybe semi-regularly do live shows where I get them involved. So it's more of less of a community like we don't have a Discord server for UK content creators, for example. Maybe we should. Maybe we should have one. But yes, I do like the friendship group that we've sort of got within the UK content creators that I have. But a lot of it is actually individual relationships. Like I get on really well with Stella and Tarrant from Meeple University, and I will chat with them now and again. Johannes and Sunniva. Get on really well with Derek from Kanchi Studios, Richard Ham, Rado, people like that. I will chat to these people, now and again, and there's lots and lots of other people as well. But I don't think, from my point of view, there isn't one community there where we're all a part of. Next question from Blaine. This is a really good question. I did see this earlier in the week. Any advice on how to be a good playtester? What types of things are useful feedback, and what frame of mind to approach the game? So I could talk for half an hour about how to be a good playtester. I will try not to talk for half an hour, but one of the common misconceptions that designers have when they playtest their game is that they playtest it with people who are not good at playtesting. So to be a good playtester, you need to try and exploit any areas of the game which could be exploited. You need to do things that are not the norm. So, for example, if your game is about, right, in this game, we're going to go to the quarry to collect some stone, then we're going to go to the forest to get some wood, and once we've got these resources, we're going to construct this building, and this building is going to be worth points. Right, okay. So what does everybody do? Well, first turn of the game, I'm going to go to the quarry, I'm going to get some stone. Second turn, I'm going to go there, get some wood, then I'm going to use the stone and the wood, and we're going to build a tavern. Right. If you're a playtester, don't do that. Try and break the game. Literally say, well, I'm just going to go to the stone quarry and get the stone, and then get the stone, and then get the stone, and I'm going to get more stone, and everybody else is thinking, why are you collecting all the stone? And then what you do is you get the stone, and you've now got all of the stone. And then you check with the designer, and he says, no, the stone's limited, right? And you've got all of the stone, and then you say, right, I'm never going to build anything. You've broken the game. So to be a good playtester, one of the things is to deliberately try and do what the game, not what the game is telling you to do. Try and break the game, because otherwise what happens is the game will come out and somebody will break that game, and then we'll talk about it and you'll be like, oh yeah. So yeah, I mean, what I've used as an example is a very extreme example, but I'm saying that you need to, not try to play the game to win. Try to find any parts of the game which you can go, oh, I'm going to try and exploit this, and do things like that. So yes, the worst playtester is somebody who just tries to just play the game, and then at the end of it says, yeah, that was fun, I enjoyed it. No, that's not good playtesting. Next question from Avron. There's a number of popular, well-rated games that I don't like. For example, Star Realms. Have I ever played something that you later realised was based on one of those games and enjoyed the second game? Well, Avron, easy answer to that question, but the Star Wars deck building game I've played about 3 or 4 times, and I quite like it. And for those people that don't know, the Star Wars deck building game is based on Star Realms. And I hate Star Realms. I think it's an awful, awful, awful game. I think it's a game with almost no player decisions. I think the player decisions in Star Realms are obvious, and then you get the hand that you're dealt. And if you're lucky enough to get the card combos, you just play it. Anyway, I don't like Star Realms, and I know lots of people do. But Star Wars, the deck building game, is mostly based on Star Realms. There's a couple of rules tweaks. But I don't know if it's a combination of... I think it's a combination of those rules tweaks, which I think do make it a better game, and the fact that it's Star Wars. But I have enjoyed my plays of Star Wars, the deck building game. So, there you go. That's the answer to that question. I need to look at something. What am I looking at? I need to look at... Oh, okay. The camera's faulty. Oh, yeah. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, I think it's fine. I think I just need to be more centered. It's come back on. We are in focus again. Yeah. Okay. I think we're in focus again. Thank you for letting Vicky know. Right. So next question. Mario wants to know what's the story with Loki? How old is he? Where did we get him? And where did he come from? Well, where he came from. So you get the mummy cat and the daddy cat, and you can look it up on the internet. There's probably videos on it. That's where he came from. But Loki is actually one of, was there 3? Or was it just the 2? It was just the 2. It's the previous ones, I'm thinking. Right. So Loki is the brother of Thor. And Mario, I don't know how to tell you this, but Thor is very, very disappointed with you because we have 2 cats, Thor and Loki, and you're only asking about Loki. So Loki's very happy. Loki's like, I'm the big cat. Everybody's asking about me. But we have Thor as well. Now, Thor isn't on camera as much as Loki. That's because Thor doesn't really come in this room, whereas Loki does. How old are they? 5? 6? 6. 5.5. They're about 5.5 years old. Where did we get them from? We got them from the Cats Protection Agency. So it was they were previously owned by somebody who I think was being evicted and couldn't keep them anymore. So yeah, I mean our previous cats that we had they were adopted as well from Blue Cross Rescue Centre, RSPCA. So yes, we've had them. We've had 2 lots of cats. Our previous cats were from the RSPCA, and Thor and Loki are from Cats Protection Agency. We got them when they were just about 1 year old. So we've never had them as kittens. They've always been cats as long as we've had them. But yeah, that's the story with Loki. Next question from Alex. Tim Tams, the Australian chocolate biscuit that is arguably our national biscuit, have been in the local news recently because they are cheaper in the UK than Australia. Dun, dun, dun. Well, have I tried them? Yes, I have. I've tried them. I love them. And I've tried multiple different flavours of them. And I actually prefer them to Penguins. Penguin is the UK equivalent of Tim Tams. They are almost identical. But when I had a Penguin and a Tim Tam next to each other, it was the Tim Tam that I slightly preferred. And I can't remember why. I haven't had them for a long time. So, next question from Brian. Follow-on question. Have I ever done a Tim Tam slam with either a Tim Tams or a Cadbury's chocolate finger? So, no, I haven't. He hasn't told me what one of those is. I'm going to guess it is something to do with dunking it in a cup of tea. Vicky is Googling a Tim Tam slam. Is it you hold it in the cup of tea and then you have to quickly eat it before it collapses? We'll find out. Tune in at 9 to find out the all new exciting answers. So anyway, we're going to find out. Vicky will let me know. So Mario, follow-up question. From memory, without cheating, what is the most dominant colour in your wardrobe? It's got to be black because of probably all of the jeans and the Gaming Rules polo shirts. But I've got a lot of black jeans, so black is probably the colour. I think I have 1 or 2 black shirts. But other than that, it would probably be maybe bluey purple. But again, I'm not sure how many of those I've got. So yeah, it's probably going to be black just because I've got quite a lot of black jeans. And jumpers and fleeces and things like that. Next question from Zach. What is the most irksome thing a player has done at the gaming table with you there? And what is the most egregious cheat that you've caught? So the most irksome thing was when, and this is going back many, many years to somebody who used to come round regularly and play games here, who has admitted since then that they were being a bit of a jerk. But they were the kind of person that when they won at a game, they would brag about it. And then when they lost at a game, they would spend 5 minutes complaining about why they lost and how it wasn't their fault and, how this would have happened, etc., etc. They were basically a sore loser. And there was one particular case where this happened, where over the 15 to 20 minutes after the game where they were ranting and ranting and ranting about how terrible things were, people were gradually leaving the room and leaving the table until there was one person left. That was something that sort of stuck in my memory. And as I said, the person who did it has since then grown up a lot, moved on, and realised that they were, yeah, being a bit of a jerk. What is the most egregious cheat that you've caught? I'm terrible at catching people cheating, and most of the time when people are cheating, it's a play mistake. It's not a deliberate cheat. It's an accidental cheat. I can't remember ever seeing anybody actually cheat deliberately. There were a couple of days back in the late 90s where I was playing Magic the Gathering at a serious competitive level, and one of my opponents at the time, who unfortunately was somebody who is very well respected in the Magic the Gathering scene and very highly ranked, was cheating so blatantly, like drawing extra cards from the top of their deck while they weren't looking, and adjusting their life total when people weren't looking. And I did spot it, and speaking to other people in the community afterwards, they were like, this is why this person wins a lot of tournaments, because they basically cheat a lot. So that did happen, and I don't know whether I spotted it or somebody else told me about it afterwards, because I go into these games, I'm so trusting, I just want to play a game. You shouldn't cheat. That's not what you do. But when there's a tournament at stake and there's a prize at stake, and I'm just playing my cards and I'm doing my thing, and the other players just sat there going, oh yeah, I'll just draw a couple of extra cards into my hand. Yeah, so I generally wouldn't notice things like that. Next question from Phil. Phil is asking, he says he's thinking of creating a companion app for an already well-known game, and wondered what ways or options of getting that sort of thing set up, preferably with little to no cost. Right. This is one area where I can't give you any advice whatsoever, because I have almost no knowledge or experience of how that works. But saying that, what I am mindful of is the person who created the Gloomhaven Helper, which was originally unofficial. And they created it off their own bat, and they put all of the work into it, and I think they got official approval to use some of the images on some of the cards or something like that. And then, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think there was some kind of bad story about it when things changed and there was a bit of a falling out with the person who developed it or something like that. I can't quite remember the details, but they basically created it on their own, and because it was for a popular game, they just advertised it and it became really popular, and they did really well out of it. That's all I can say, is that if you are thinking of creating a companion app for an already well-known game, then if it is a companion app which is actually going to really help the gameplay, like the Gloomhaven Helper app did, then yeah, I would just start working on it, start creating it, and then maybe post links to it on Board Game Geek and see if you can get people involved and things like that. Certainly, if there is a Discord server for the game itself, I would definitely join the community and speak to them about it. I would also recommend speaking to the publisher as well to let them know what you're planning to do, because for all you know, they might be working on a companion app themselves. They might not even give you permission to mention it, or they might give you their blessing and they might give you some digital assets to use. So there you go. I said I wouldn't be able to help with it. Hopefully I have helped with it. Next question from Ray. What is the funniest rules mistake you have made? I've made a few rules mistakes over the years. I don't know about the funniest one. Yeah, there's been a number of rules mistakes that I've made in games. And personally, it makes me really uncomfortable, especially when I'm doing a live stream and I make a rules mistake. That's always, that triggers my anxiety. That's always really bad. But even when I'm not live streaming, there's a number of rules mistakes that I've made. I remember one of the most famous ones that I made is the game Imperial. So when the game Imperial came out, I got it, played it loads, absolutely loved it. Must have played it probably 5, 6 times, and then got together with a friend of mine, Tim, and we were playing it together. And he played England, and he moved his ship into the sea, and he put a tax disc on the sea. And I'm like, you can't do that. You can't tax the sea. That doesn't make sense. That's not thematic. You tax the land. You get the. And he was like, yeah, you can. And I'm like, well, we've never played it like that at all. Let's get the rule book. Get the rule book. Oh yeah, you can. And he was like, well, yeah, because if you can't, England's rubbish. And we were like, yeah, we just played the game thinking that England was rubbish. So yes, so that was one of the, I don't know about the funniest ones, but that was one of the biggest rules mistakes that I made in the game Imperial, is not actually realising that you could tax the sea zones. So, next question from Monsters Inc. Should I, in the unlikely event, find myself not busy for 3 hours during GridCon 5, what game would you choose to play from the main game library? Well, one of the options for that would be Civolution, but it would have to be 2-player in order to get the game done in time, or 3 players max who all know the game. But Civolution is going to be in the hot games library, not the main game library. So, what game would I choose? The other option that I'd like to play is some Netrunner. I would like to play some games of Netrunner at GridCon 5 if the opportunity arose. But other than that, let me just pull up the library for GridCon 5. The GridCon 5 library is not finalised yet. And for those people watching who don't know what GridCon is the convention that me and Vicky organise, which is happening in 3 weeks' time. And I've been putting together the library, which is here. So let's have a quick look through this. Which of these games, if I had 3 hours free, would I like to play? Well, there is a game on here which is going to be in the library called Andromeda's Edge. I've not played it yet, and I don't know how to play. And I do want to learn how to play, because I'm actually covering it on the Friday after GridCon. So that would be very high up my list, because Mark Dainty is going to be at GridCon. Mark loves Andromeda's Edge, and Mark would happily, hopefully, take 3 hours out of his time and teach me how to play. So that would be one of them that would be my choice. Next one, looking down the list. There's a lot of great games on here. There's a lot of games which I have already played, but I would more than happily play again. I will I will never say no to a game of Dune Imperium. Black Forest is on here as well. Looking down the list. There's a number of other games on here which I've not played yet, like Galaxy Postman, which I'd like to play. Looking down the list. Yeah, there's a lot on here. I've not played Revenant yet, but I'm going to be learning that soon. In fact, I've got to learn Revenant before GridCon, because I'm going to be covering that before GridCon. Yeah, let's go with that one. Let's go with Andromeda's Edge, because A, I want to play it. Lots of people are saying how good it is, and I've not played it, so I don't know. But also, it's a game that I need to learn how to play for the week after GridCon. Next question from Ray. Listening back to your July vlog, do you plan to take another week off to game anytime soon? What other things have you done to keep your interest in board games? So, yeah, for those people who don't know, in July, the first week in July, I took the week off work. And the reason I did that is because I was getting frustrated by the increasing backlog of games which I really want to play and I don't have time to play. So I took the week off work, and what did I do in that week? I live streamed more board games than I normally do within a week. So I effectively did what I normally do for a job, but the difference is none of it was paid for. So I took a week's holiday from work to do what I normally do for work. It just wasn't paid for. Do I plan to take another week off anytime soon? No, but since Essen, my plan is to take 1 day a week off work. So not a whole week off work, but a day a week, where I'm going to be covering a lot of the new games from Essen. So last week I covered Saltfjord on the Friday afternoon, Daitoshi Friday evening, and this Monday, just gone, I did Beyond the Horizon. Now I don't have anything planned for next week, but that's because I'm doing Elder Scrolls on Saturday, and next Sunday I'm doing Asian Tigers. But the week after that, I'm taking a day off, and I'm probably going to be covering Menefa. And the week after that, I'm taking a day off, and I'm going to be covering Anno 1800 with the expansion. most likely. It's all based on Patreon supporters' votes. So yeah, my plan is for the next few months, rather than taking just a week off, is actually take a day a week off work. And the only reason I'm able to do that, again, a big shout out to all of my Patreon supporters for making this possible. Your financial contributions to my Patreon allow me the financial flexibility to take a day a week off my paid work, which is creating board game videos, to create board game videos, but ones that aren't paid for. So yes, big thank you to all of my Patreon supporters for supporting the channel and giving me the abilities to do that. That's it. That's it for all of the questions that I've been asked in advance on Board Game Geek. We are 5 to 6. So we did it in an hour. Before we go on, it's time to mention the contest. Every month, as part of these live Q&As, I give away £50 worth of games vouchers for Gameslaw. Gameslaw is the UK's largest specialist games retailer. Gameslaw.com is the website. And every month, they give me £25 worth of vouchers. I add to that £25 of my own money so that one person can win £50 worth of games vouchers. This is available to anybody watching, whether you are a Patreon supporter or not. If you are a Patreon supporter, you get twice as many chances to win. But all you need to do to enter is click on the link, which is in the description of this video. It might be in the description of this video. Vicky's going to add it to the description of this video. But it's also in the chat right now. It's a Google form. And all you need to do is put the secret word. And the secret word this week is Woolium. This is a little wool meeple that was made for me by Josh's wife. And if you are coming to GridCon, Josh's wife is actually making a few of these and they are going to be for sale and all of the money is going to be going to charity. So this is Woolium and that is the secret word for today. All you need to do is just enter the contest, click on the link, give me some of your details, put Woolium as the secret word, and I will choose the winner the day of the next live Q&A, which is probably going to be the Wednesday after GridCon. So that'll be the 20th of November. Yeah, so you've got until the 20th of November to enter the contest. And the winner for last month is Neil Brody, who is coming to GridCon. So congratulations, Neil. Thank you very much. You are actually the second person to have entered. So what I do is I get all of the entries for the previous month and then I have a random number generator and the random number generator came up as like the second person on the list and that was you. So sometimes it's good to get in there early, but it's completely random. I remember one month, the person who won literally was the last person to have entered the giveaway and they entered it like 3 days before, it was like 4 weeks after the Q&A and they entered it and they won. So yes, good luck to everybody for that. And again, big thank you to Gameslaw for giving me the £25 worth of the vouchers. And then I add £25 of my own money to that. Right, so over to the questions. The secret word slower. It's Woolium. So it's like William, but wool instead of will. Because Woolium is made of wool. There we go. Right. Okay. Tim Tams. So a Tim Tam slam. The opposite ends of the Tim Tam are bitten off. One end is submerged in the beverage, and then the beverage is sucked through the biscuit as though using the Tim Tam as a straw. Okay? So, no, I don't think I've ever done that, but that sounds delicious, especially with hot chocolate. Okay, so live questions. Oh, we have Loki. Hello, Loki. Right, first question from Bombeza. When can we expect the Aeon Trespass Odyssey tutorial videos? I'll tell you what. Right. What I will say is watch out for tomorrow's update. Into the Unknown are going to be doing an update tomorrow. And in that update, they will tell you exactly when the videos will be made live. But I am currently getting 2 to 3 messages stroke emails a day. I'm getting emails, I'm getting Facebook messages, I'm getting messages on Discord, I'm getting messages, carrier pigeons, everything, asking me when these videos are going to be made live. So I will be really glad when these videos are made live because hopefully the questions will stop. I get it, people are very keen, people want to know the answers, people want to know when the videos are coming, but from my point of view, I am just constantly getting asked when these videos are going to be released. And to be fair, I finished them back in April. But the publisher, who is the client, they are the ones paying. They are the ones that chose when these videos would go live. It's not down to me. Next question from George. Any news on the how to play videos for Aeon Trespass? Okay, same answer, George. There you go. Next question from Matt. When are the Aeon Trespass video? No, kidding. Matt is asking, how is the construction going? Matt, to answer that question, I will refer you back to what I said at the start of this stream, that it's been a stressful day. There are some issues with the construction, and today has been a difficult day regarding that. Next question from Tony. Am I going to MidCon next weekend? I am not going to MidCon next weekend, Tony. 2 reasons. The first one, 3 reasons probably. The first one is I've got GridCon coming up soon, and in the month before GridCon, I just have to spend as much time as I can doing GridCon work. I will be absolutely honest with you here. I have done no paid work for about a week. For the last week, I have pretty much spent all of my time doing GridCon admin, and I did the videos for Saltfjord, Daitoshi, and Beyond the Horizon, none of which were paid for. So I've not earned any money in probably the last week and a half. Every day that I should have been working, I've been doing GridCon stuff instead, which means the paid work is getting a little bit behind, but there's been a lot of GridCon prep that's needed. So yes, there's no way that I can go to other conventions in the few weeks before GridCon. The second reason is, this weekend I am already busy. I am doing Elder Scrolls all day Saturday, and we're going out on Sunday to play Agamonia. And the third one is MidCon's a little bit far from me now. And I know I go to SN every year as well, but that's a bit special. Next question from Peter. Am I a competitive gamer or a casual gamer, or does it depend on what game is being played or who you're playing with? Do you have a personal preference either way? Very good question, Peter. But the answer to it is not an easy answer. So, I am a competitive gamer in that I will try to win the game. But I don't mind whether I win or lose. So I'm competitive in that I want to play my best and I want to try and win the game. And I assume that almost everybody around the table with me is trying to do the same thing. My definition of a casual gamer, and I have come across casual gamers in the past, is that they don't actually, they're just there for the company. And they are not really trying in the game. They will just do things, it doesn't matter, I'm not bothered, I'll just go there, it's not very good, I know I'm not going to win, doesn't matter, I'll just go there. Well, why are you playing the game? For me, I have this kind of, what's it called? Like an unwritten rule. What's the phrase I'm looking for? There's a phrase I'm looking for where you have these, something like a contract. I can't remember the exact phrase that I'm looking for. But when I sit down and play a game, I assume that everybody around the table is going to try to play the game to the best of their ability and to try and win. And if somebody at the table is not doing that because they're just there for the company, that is actually potentially going to spoil the game for everybody. Yeah, unwritten agreement. Yeah, something like that. There's a particular phrase that I'm looking for, and I can't remember what the phrase is. So yes, so I would say that I'm a competitive gamer, not a casual gamer. However, for some people, the term competitive gamer means I'm going to be really angry about this, and I'm going to be and I'm going to fight really hard, and I'm going to try and cheat, and I'm going to try and lie, and I'm going to do everything I can to win the game. And no, we don't do that. So yeah, thankfully, most of the people that I play with are on the same page. That's what we all do. But yeah, if you want to sit down and play a game with me, then I expect you to try and win that game and not just mess around. Social contract. That's it. Thank you. Yeah, Brett, social contract as well. Okay, right. Frank has said, Fantasia Games gave the promise to deliver Unconscious Mind to all Kickstarter backers before Essen. They got in trouble and they weren't able to keep this promise. What's your thoughts on this discussion? So my thoughts on this discussion is that, bearing in mind I have a professional relationship with Fantasia Games, and that professional relationship, as is often the case in the board game industry, has turned into a friendship over the years that I've worked with them as well. I like the guys, I like what they do, I think they're a great publisher, and I think they're doing really good stuff. But that said, they shouldn't make the promises. I have a big thing on the term promise. A promise to me means I promise and I am going to keep it. I don't use promises lightly. I don't give promises lightly. And I don't give promises that I know I can't keep. And if they actually said we promise, then that's a problem. If they said we will try our very best to make sure that all Kickstarter backers have their game before Essen, then that's a different thing. But ultimately, they shouldn't have made that promise, because the world is there. There are problems. There are boats. Boats have problems. There's weather. Weather causes boats to have problems. They had to go to Essen to sell their games. Small publishers need the retail sales of their games at Essen. Otherwise, the company might not even have enough money to keep going. That's the reality of the situation. So, yeah, my opinion on that is that publishers need to be transparent. They need to be honest. They need to be open with their backers, and they need to say things how they are. But, yeah, if you are watching this and you are a publisher, just don't make promises. Say, we will try our very best. And if everything goes all right, we will be able to do it. But if there are unforeseen circumstances, like what happens if the boat carrying all of them sunk or caught fire or something like that? What are they supposed to do? Have, 500 copies of the game that will effectively pay for the Essen trip and sit them in the warehouse and not sell them at Essen? Because then Essen comes, they don't have any games, Essen goes, and they've got 500 games in a warehouse that they now can't sell, and the company folds. That's the other option. And I'm sure nobody will want that option, but I can also understand how some backers are not happy with the situation. Anyway, that's my thoughts on that. And that doesn't apply to Fantasia Games. That applies to everybody. That is a global statement for anybody who is putting a game, who makes some kind of promise on a delivery date, is that you should never actually promise it, because some of it's outside your control. Next question from W French. Have I played Arcs? I haven't played Arcs, but I can give you my thoughts on it. My thoughts on Arcs are that I am probably not going to play this game. The reason for that is I've heard a lot about Arcs. Arcs is one of the games which is being talked about a lot at the moment. And I have a lot of my supporters and a lot of my friends who are absolutely loving it and said this is one of the cleverest games ever designed. At least half of them have said to me, Paul, you won't like it. So it's good that I have people saying, look, I've played this game, I think this is amazing, and I think it is super, super clever, but I can see that there are people who aren't going to like this. Then I have various things that I've read about the game, and I'm not talking about reviewers' opinions, I'm talking about just people who've played the game, who've posted about their experiences on Discord servers and things like that, and community channels, and I've read enough of them to know that I'm probably not going to like this game. There are certain things that I've read about it which make me nervous about playing it. So I'm probably not going to play Arcs. And I've never played Root. And I probably never will play Root. It's not possible for me to play every single game. And there are certain games that come out where I am literally looking for an excuse to cross it off my list. Because there's so many games coming out and I don't get a chance to cover all of them. And the ones that I do cover, some of them I want to play multiple times and I don't get time to do that. So if I can find a reason why I can say, oh, I'm going to get rid of that off the list, that's a good thing for me. So I haven't played it, and that is my thing. There is a comment that there are several deaf people watching this video. Is there a way to caption your live video so that they can all chime in? I don't believe that there are automatic subtitles on live videos on YouTube. If there are, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm not sure the captions work on live videos. But if you're watching this back afterwards, I believe that the YouTube automatic captions is pretty good for my voice and my accent. I've been told that the automatic subtitles that YouTube puts on my videos are pretty good, but I don't think they are there for live. And Mark is saying in the chat that they're not there. Yeah, so if you're watching this live, then you'll have to lip read, but you can always watch it back later on, and hopefully the automatic subtitles will work. Next question from Camion. When's the Andromeda's Edge playthrough? I can tell you exactly when the Andromeda's Edge playthrough is. It's the Friday after GridCon. So what will that be? 22nd? Let me just check my calendar. I mean, my calendar for the next 3 months is already planned. So let me just double check, so that because you can set the reminders now if you want. The video's not there yet, but you can set your calendar reminders. Andromeda's Edge, 22nd of November. So Friday, the 22nd of November, it will either be starting at 7 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the evening. If the game is going to be 3 hours-ish, we're going to start at 8 o'clock. If the game is going to be 3.5 hours-ish, we're going to start at 7 o'clock. So Friday, the 22nd of November is when it's going to be happening. There you go, Andromeda's Edge. Looking forward to it because lots of people have said how good it is. Next question. What do you think about translations when the publisher translates names and places instead of using the names used by the designer? Ooh. What do I think about translations when the publisher translates names and places instead of using the names used by the designer? Okay, if you mean names and places, do you mean... I don't know if you mean names of places or player names. I have no problem with any localization partner in changing the player names used in the rulebook to match more appropriate names for that particular region. Like if it's a UK rulebook, it would say Stephen. If it's a German rulebook, it would say Stefan. Things like that. I have no problem with that. If you mean translating names of characters in the game, then it really depends. If it's a fantasy character, then it probably shouldn't need translating. But what happens if you were playing, you know, a fantasy character and that character was called, you know, Paul Hairyfoot? Hairyfoot is 2 English words put together that means I've got hairy feet. Would a German localization partner change that too? And anybody who's watching this who knows the German for Hairyfoot, would it be that? I don't know. I can see why they might want to change it. In terms of places, because if you look, like we call Prague. In the Czech Republic, it's Praha. And on the nuclear map, they've gone with Praha, which is the Czech name for it, whereas the Western sort of name for it is Prague. I don't know. I don't know what I think about it. I don't have any strong feelings either way. I don't know if anybody else has any strong feelings either way on that. Yeah. Now, Mark's put something in the chat which is interesting, is about the name of the game. You might have meant that. You might have meant the name of the game. I hadn't thought about that. But last year's game from Delicious Games, which was Evacuation, when it came out in French, it was called Exodus. Because I think there were some issues with the French version of the game, Evacuation, having other meanings. And the other one was Arnak, Lost Ruins of Arnak. Because the word Arnak in French means something very different. So I can't remember if they changed it or not. But yeah, I don't have any strong feelings one way or the other about it. A publisher will make what they feel is the best decisions for them. Next question from Aidan. Do you think we will get all of the print and plays from CGE's website for Arnak published with the big box? Could I put in a good word? So speaking of Lost Ruins of Arnak, there is going to be a big box version of it coming, I believe, next year. And Aidan is asking, do I think that we'll get all of the print and plays from CGE's website? I don't know. I can ask Min and Elwyn. If you want, I can ask them and see what they say. Personally, I think they should be in there. Because why not? It's a big box. The idea is that this big box contains everything for Lost Ruins of Arnak. And I don't think it's going to cost them that much extra to put some of the print and play files into the big box. But yes, remind me next week and I can ping Min and Elwyn a message and find out for you. Next question from Mark. What can you tell us about the Lost Ruins of Arnak big box? Nothing. I don't know any more than what has been made publicly available. I haven't asked for any more information. So yeah, I don't know any more than the information that's already out there. Mark is saying, am I glad that Elder Scrolls is fulfilling next year so that I have no problem choosing the #1 game of the year? Yeah, so Elder Scrolls Betrayal of the Second Era from Chip Theory Games was supposed to be fulfilling in November of this year. But with various delays and various other slight production issues, I think they've recently announced that delivery is very likely to be Q1 of 2025. Am I glad that it is fulfilling next year rather than this year so that I don't have to decide which is my #1 game of this year? Because at the moment, Civolution is my #1 game of 2024. It was going to be Galactic Cruise, but now Galactic Cruise is also not going to be released until Q1 2025. And Mark is saying, how does it feel going into 2025 with my #1 and #2 games already, well, I wouldn't say set in stone, but it is weird. It is very, very weird for me to already know what 2 of my top 10 games for 2025 is going to be. And that's simply because these games are not actually released until, they're not going to be publicly available. Backers are not going to get their copies until the start of next year. I am lucky enough and I'm fortunate enough to have played both of these games a number of times. They are both fantastic. They are both amazing games and they will definitely be in my top 10 of next year. But to be fair, they are my #1 and 2 games for next year because I don't think I've played anything else which is coming out next year yet. Next question from Mike. Mike has watched my playthrough of the Digital Book of Hours. What did I think of it, and can I give or others in the group recommend anything similar? I am aware of News Tower. So, Mike, in order to get the best answer to this question, I will more than happily give you my thoughts on the game. But what you're doing is you're asking for other people's recommendations on anything similar. So again, this will be a good question for the guild. So Mike, if you're able to head on over to the guild, Board Game Geek, guild number 2258, Vicky will put a link to it in the chat right now. And if you go on there and you post a new question and you just say advice wanted on computer games or something like that, mention Book of Hours and ask for other people's similar thoughts. If you are one of my Patreon supporters, then on the Slack channel, we actually have a video games section on the Slack channel where there's lots of people talking about video games all the time. So if you are one of my Patreon supporters, you have access to an exclusive area for my community where this sort of thing is discussed. But the Board Game Geek Guild is the next best thing. So what did I think of it? Well, you probably got the idea from those playthroughs that I was enjoying it. And for those people who don't know, when we went on honeymoon last year, I decided that I felt it would be nice that I had a series of videos that I would release every few days while I was away on holiday. And it just so happens that about a month before, this new game came out, which I was very excited about it. It looked really good. It looked like my kind of thing, and it was called Book of Hours. And I contacted the publisher, and they sent me a code for the game, and I played it a bit, and I thought, oh yeah, I like this. And that's when I decided I'm going to do a series of playthrough videos. So what I did is I recorded about 8 half-hour episodes of me playing this game, and I released them every few days while I was away on holiday. Now, those videos didn't perform very well. The videos literally had a few hundred views each. Not the best performing videos on my channel. So was it worth doing them? Possibly not, but ultimately I was playing the game anyway. Is it more effort to record a video and talk while you're playing a game? Yes, it absolutely is, but I wanted to do it. Whether I'd do it again, I'm not sure, because, as I say, those videos didn't perform well. I did enjoy the game, but I reached a point in that game where I felt that I'd experienced some of what the game had to offer, but I reached a point where I thought, okay, it's now just going to be more of the same. And I don't know if I've got the time and the patience to put into it in order to carry on playing. And I didn't actually play any more after those 8 playthroughs. And I have thought about going back to it now and again. But like with a lot of computer games that I play, I get into it and I'm really liking it and I'm really liking it. And then I reach a certain point where I'm like, okay, the game has reached this particular plateau of difficulty where I'm going to have to now put in more time and more effort in order to getting past it. And I respect the game. I like the theme. I like what they've done with the game. I like the whole look and the feel of the game. But there were a couple of parts of the game that I found frustrating. I was having to have lots and lots of manual notes and pieces of paper. And I'm like, okay, I need to get 7 of this particular thing. Well, I can only get 4. But then if I go and speak to them, I get 5. But how am I going to get the other 2? Oh, there's a candle. There's a specific candle that's in a specific room. And I have to remember that it's there. And that gives me one of those. And it just became the puzzle of piecing together the right things became a bit too much when it got to sort of like the middle of the game. And there were also other things in the game that I was confused by. I didn't understand how they worked. And I was having to spend a lot of my time actually watching other people's videos and getting answers from the Wikipedia because I'm not very good at discovering things myself. So I did enjoy the time that I played with the game, but I just don't think I have the time or the patience to progress beyond that, if that makes sense. But yeah, head on over to the guild, ask the question, and hopefully you'll get some ideas from other people's games of what they like. And thank you for coming in and asking the question. Next question from Peter. How many hours on average do I spend on board games in a week? Now, if you mean playing board games, because I spend an awful lot of time on board games but not playing them, I would say on average, probably maybe between 10 and 12. I mean, if we take this week, okay, so this week is an extreme example. I did Beyond the Horizon on Monday. I did ISS Vanguard on Tuesday. I'm not doing any board games today. I'm not doing any board games tomorrow. Friday, I'm playing World Order twice. Saturday, we're doing Elder Scrolls, which is going to be about 5 hours. And Sunday, we're doing Agamonia, which is going to be 3. So that's what? That's probably going to be maybe 5, 6, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. This week is probably about 20. But last week was probably about 10. So yeah, on a busy week where I'm doing an extra playthrough on a Monday and something on a Tuesday, and I'm playing games on the Saturday and the Sunday, which is quite rare, it's probably 20 hours. But it's usually more likely 10. And that's not to mention all of the online games that I play asynchronously over on Board Game Arena. Right, we are at 20 past 6. So I'm going to say at this point, no more questions, please. If you do have any questions, I will be back in 4 weeks' time. Please save them till then. I am now going to go through all the rest of the questions that I've been asked, but please no more for today. Right, question from Brett. If I had to pick faces for a board game Mount Rushmore, who would I choose? This has been asked before. Could I just grab the water, please? This has definitely been asked before. Board game faces for... Board game faces for Mount Rushmore. Yeah, it's definitely been asked before. And it would have to be... It would have to be Reiner Knizia. Reiner would definitely have to be on there because of his... He's done so many games. He's been such a prolific designer over the last, well, at least 30 years, possibly longer. He's done, what, over 900 games now? And he's still designing games now. That's the great thing about Reiner Knizia, is he's still designing games right now. So he would definitely be on there. Other designers... I'm not sure, because there's some really, really great designers that have only been around a few years. Mount Rushmore would have to be the really big popular ones. You'd have to put Vlaada Battle on there, I think, because of Vlada's impact on... I mean, he did Through the Ages. He did Mage Knight. He did Codenames. You know, Vlada's done so many amazing games over the years that I think, although he's not done anything big for quite a while, he's done some very big games in there. But other than that, I don't know, it's tricky, and it's all very subjective. I mean, maybe that's a good question for the guild. There you go, Brett. If you want to pop that over at the guild, I would actually be really interested in seeing what other people do. But rather than just posting the question to the guild and saying... what four faces should you have on Mount Rushmore? What I want to avoid is people just saying their four favourite designers. That's not the question. The question is not, who are your four favourite designers? Because Reiner Knizia is not one of my top 4 game designers. But I firmly believe that he should be on the Mount Rushmore of board games. So, yeah, try to get people not to just give their 4 favourite designers, but to actually say... which people do you think should be on there? Because they've had such an impact on the board gaming hobby. And would it be different from a tabletop gaming Mount Rushmore? Oh, I don't quite know the difference. Okay, well, board games and tabletop gaming. Those two terms are used in similar ways. But I see, if what you're saying is tabletop gaming... could also be role-playing games or card games or war games, then you would probably be looking at Gary Gygax as well. I think Gary Gygax stroke Dave Arneson, you would have to be putting their name, you'd have to be putting them on there because of Dungeons and Dragons and their impact on, well, yeah, you know, it's massive. Should you also be putting... what's he called? I've forgotten his name. Guy who designed Magic the Gathering. That guy. My mind's gone blank. Richard Garfield. That's the guy. Should you also put Richard Garfield? I think you'd have to. You'd absolutely have to put Richard Garfield because of the impact that the games they design, or one in particular, but he's done other games as well, has had on there. Anyway, yes, pop it over on the guild. Donnie's saying that he's currently learning and playing Burn Cycle. Will I come to our home in Salt Lake City, Utah, and play it with you? If you want to invite me and pay for the flights and the hotel, and if you can create an extra week of time that I can come over there, I'd love to. Burn Cycle is one of those games where I went through the learning curve to play the game and then ended up only playing it twice. And I don't think I actually fully appreciated the game because I was still in a, well, I think I know how the rules work, but I'm not still quite sure. And Burn Cycle has an enormous amount of content, and an enormous amount of breadth and depth, and so much going on that I have literally barely scratched the surface with it. The problem I have with Burn Cycle is I don't think I have, going back to the same old argument of time and patience, I don't think I have the time and patience to put in to go back and relearn Burn Cycle when I would much prefer to play Cloudspire, for example. and I don't have enough time to play Cloud Spire. So, yes. Next question from Peter. Have I decided not to do a top 10 games of 2023? I haven't decided, but as time has gone on, yeah. I mean, I haven't made the decision about whether to do one or not, but every time I have thought of doing one, I've always come up with a few reasons in my head of not. And to be honest, me creating a top 10 video is about 2 days of work. That's how long it takes me to do a top 10 video, believe it or not. And I've not found the time in the last 6 months to say, tell you what, I'm going to spend 2 days on making a top 10 video. If, my top 10 videos got 80, 100, 150,000 views like other content creators do, then I'd potentially be more motivated to do it. But my top 10 videos, although they perform better than some of my other videos, they still don't perform anywhere near as good for the amount of time it takes me to do them. I have thought about an alternative option that if we get to the end of this year, or maybe the start of December, that I might do something similar to what I did a couple of years ago, where I will actually do a live stream where I will go through all of the games from 2023 and I will use the Pub Meeple ranking system. Because a couple of years ago, I did that as a series of live streams between Christmas and New Year. And those live streams were some of my most popular live streams, where I rated my entire collection. And it took me, 8 hours or something ridiculous? And I literally went through my entire collection and rated it. And I don't know whether it was just the type of video or whatever, but those videos were really popular. And I thought about doing that because it would take me less time to do. And it would be more fun and it would be more interactive. And yeah, so that's my backup plan, Peter. And I might try and do that. And the reason why I might try and do that at the end of this year is because I don't like doing them. I don't like doing the top 10 games of 2024 at the end of 2024 when half of the games I won't have played. Right, next question from Marco. Are you having Atlantis Exodus on your screen? And will there be a playthrough at some point? No. Atlantis Exodus is a game which came out at Essen Spiel and it didn't make my cut. I looked at it, but then I decided I'm already coming back with 40, 45 new games. I can't come back with everything. It was on my maybe list. There were about 4 or 5 games on my maybe list and it didn't make the cut. So no, I don't have a copy of Atlantis Exodus and therefore you're not going to see it on the channel. JJ is asking, could you please do a 7 Empires playthrough video? Well, yes. So here's the situation. When I got back from Essen, I put a poll up on my Patreon page. And if you're a Patreon producer or executive producer, you have the ability to vote on which games you want to see on the channel. And I will tell you now, I'm just going to head on over to the page. And this is, if you are a Patreon supporter, this is what you have to be a producer level or higher. But this is one of the perks that you get of being a Patreon supporter, is that you get to vote on the order in which I'm going to be covering the games. And what I will do is I will tell you now very quickly, and the poll is still open. So if you are a Patreon supporter of producer level or higher and you haven't voted yet, you can still vote. The vote is still open. The one that got the most votes is Daitoshi, which I covered on Friday. The next one with the most votes was Saltfjord, which I also covered on Friday. The one with the next most votes is Menefa. Now that hasn't arrived yet. It should be here at the end of this week, so I'm hoping to cover that soon. After that is Beyond the Horizon, which I covered on Monday. Then it's the Anno 1800 with the expansion. Then, believe it or not, the one that got the next most number of votes is Pirates of Maracaibo with the expansion. Great game, really like it, but I'm surprised that that got as many votes as it did. Other games on that list: Fishing, Stressbotics, Evenfall with the expansion, Caracas, AI 100% Human, Galaxy Postman, Canal, Power Grid Outpost, League of Six, Freeride USA, Tea Garden, Flatiron, Tower Up, Forest Shuffle with the expansions. All of those games are on the list as well. And 7 Empires is also on that list. It currently has 43 votes. So it's based on just me having a quick look, it is likely to get covered. At the moment, probably January or February, based on the current number of votes, is when it's likely to get covered. And you might be thinking, we can't wait that long. Why are you waiting so long to do it? Well, I already said I'm taking a day a week off work in order to try, because none of these are sponsored. I want to try and bring you as many of these as I can. But the reality is that I'm just not going to have time. So I'm thinking it will probably be January for Seven Empires. Now, for those people who don't know, Seven Empires is the latest game from designer Mac Gertz. Mac Gertz, who brought us Imperial, he also brought us Concordia, but Seven Empires looks amazing. And I am actually really, really keen on trying it out. It will be the most interactive player versus player game that I will have covered on the channel for quite a while. But having read about it and having seen it being played and having spoken to people who've played it, I really want to play it. It looks good. And it will be in the library at GridCon. So if you're coming to GridCon and you want to play Seven Empires, it will be in the library. And if you do get it out, let me know. Next question from Jesse. Have I played the Star Wars Unlimited? I haven't. Do I like TCGs? Yes and no. I am a former Magic the Gathering player. I've played a huge amount of Magic the Gathering. I am a huge fan of Netrunner. I have played a number of CCGs, TCGs, LCGs over the years. I am a fan. I still play Netrunner now. I think it's absolutely fantastic. I was very excited about Star Wars Unlimited. I was very excited about it. But again, going on to the thing that I mentioned earlier on, I am constantly looking for a reason not to get into something because I simply don't have time. And let's say I did get into Star Wars Unlimited and I started playing it. Even if I enjoyed it, that's going to take me away from playing, for example, Netrunner, which is a game that I absolutely adore. So when I saw Star Wars Unlimited, there were two things about it that instantly made me say no. One of them is that it's a collectible card game. So Fantasy Flight Games created the living card game idea where you don't buy a random pack of cards, but you actually get a fixed set of cards. I love the idea of an LCG. Arkham Horror, the card game, incredible game. Marvel Champions, incredible game. Both of those are LCGs. They're not collectible card games. It's not random what you get. When they announced that Star Wars Unlimited, they are changing their business model. They're moving away from LCGs and they're going back to CCGs. I didn't like that. And again, you might not like me for saying this, but I did not like the artwork. The artwork in the Star Wars Unlimited game, I do not like that art style. So for those two reasons, I went, nope, I'm not interested. And I'm glad that I did that because, as I say, any time spent playing that would take me away from games that I already know that I love. Next question from Ragura. Can you give some insight into what makes a good rulebook? You're experimenting with board game design and this is something you have zero experience with. Yes, and it's very difficult for me to summarize that because I do rulebook writing seminars which either last 1 hour or I do series of seminars for publishers on what makes a good rulebook. But first of all, just a few bullet points of information. You need to have an itemized components list with a full list of all of the components in the game and images next to every component so that you see what's there. You also need to have an introduction to the game about what it's about, and you need to tell people basic information at the start about whether the game is cooperative, competitive, whatever. Give people a bit of a short introduction to the game. Then you need to do setup. Then you need to have a game overview. The biggest problem that I see in rulebooks right now is the front loading of information. I am on a personal crusade against front loading of information. And front loading of information, for those people who don't know, means that you have 1, 2, 4, or 8 pages at the start of your rulebook with, here's some really important information that you are going to need to know in order to play this game. No. Sorry. That is bad. Front loading of information is is one of the most evil things in rulebooks. It should have components list, introduction, how to set up the game overview, and then it should start explaining the game step by step. And any of this, here's some really important information that you need to know, that should be in with the section that details the rulebook. But other general comments, you need to have lots of examples. You need good examples. You need to have images with the examples. You need to make sure that you don't bury rules within examples. The examples should be an example of how the rule works. So the rules should say all of the rules, and then there should be an example. The idea is that you should be able to skip that example and still know how to play the game. So whatever you do, do not bury rules within examples. Also, have an icon reference on the back of the rulebook should you need it. All sorts of things like that. There's lots and lots of options, but hopefully that's a few. Next question. When will you play Stalker, TBG, and is there going to be a how to play video? Right, well, let's go back to the calendar. I can tell you exactly when that will be, and it will be, set your calendars, Friday, November 29th. I will be doing a live playthrough of Stalker, the board game. William's a bit drunk today. But it will not be a how to play video. It will be a tutorial and playthrough video where I will be explaining the rules to people who are watching as we're playing it. So it will be a playthrough video, but it will also be designed as a tutorial rather than an actual how to play video. So that's happening on the 29th. Next question, will I have a playthrough of Valencia? What's Valencia? Is that the new Stefan Feld game? I think it's one of the new Stefan Feld games, which I've mentioned at the start. Let's have a look. Valencia. Yep, I have no plans to cover Valencia at all. I think Tom Heath might be covering it. I know Tom's doing Chichen Itza, but yeah, I don't have any personal plans to cover that. Front End Wizard says, I live in the Netherlands and for the last 2 years I've started buying and playing board games. Welcome to the hobby. I play games with friends, but I think it's time to join a conference next year, Essen or GridCon. Well, I mean, Essen's a big step. I would actually say not to go to Essen for your first convention. Essen is a very, very different type of convention. Essen is effectively a trade show where there's lots of exhibitors demoing games and selling games. I would recommend finding a smaller local convention where you can go and play games. Now, that said, Essen is fantastic. And I do know people who have been to Essen, and Essen is the first ever convention that they went to. But there are so many different types of conventions. And if you compare Essen and GridCon, you couldn't get much different, to be honest. GridCon is a gaming convention. We have rooms of tables where people sit and play games. We don't have any exhibitors there. Whereas Essen is all exhibitors and there is no way you can sit and play games. So yeah, they are very, very different. But I would recommend checking out some local Facebook groups, local gaming communities, and finding out some local conventions in the Netherlands area, assuming that there are some. I don't know. But yeah, check them out. Next question from Mad. Am I going to PAX Unplugged? I am not going to PAX Unplugged, unfortunately. DVS, do you think the Shackleton base would be good for 2 players or solo? I'm not sure about that. There are definitely elements of Shackleton base that work better at 4 than 3. So my honest answer is I don't know if it will be good at 2 players. I have faith in the designers and the developers of the game in that they have made a 2-player game that works. So I suspect it may be good at 2 players. I suspect it would be better at 3 and potentially even better at 4. But that's not to say that I don't think 2 would be good. I haven't played it at 2 and I haven't played the solo mode yet. So I can't honestly say because I've not tried it. Kaiwa, is there any news on Mage Knight that you can give? There is not. No. The information that I know about the next Mage Knight expansion is not something that I am allowed to share. So I can't give you any thoughts on that. Next question from Nikos. Any thoughts on Dead Cells? Have I tried it? I have not tried it. I remember seeing a picture of it on a Facebook group, and that's it. And I saw the picture and it said Dead Cells, and I thought, oh, I wonder what that is, and that's it. So that's it. Whew. Well, I'm glad that those last questions were actually relatively short, relatively quick. So a huge thank you to everybody who's been joining us for this Q&A, and hello to everybody who is watching back afterwards. Just a quick couple of things before we finish. First of all, again, huge thank you to all of my Patreon supporters. If you are not a Patreon supporter of mine and you do want to support the channel and help make videos like this possible, and not just this video, but Beyond the Horizon, which I did on Monday, Daitoshi, Saltfjord, and all of those other 30 odd playthroughs that are going to be coming to the channel over the next 3 months. None of those are sponsored, and they are only possible thanks to the support of the Patreon. So patreon.com/gaming rules if you do want to support the channel. Second, the contest. Don't forget, enter the contest. It's free, absolutely free, and you could win £50 worth of game vouchers. So even if you're not in the UK, £50 you can still buy a game from Games Law, and with shipping, you can still get a decent game for that amount of money, I think. You used to be able to. I'm not sure about now. So don't forget to enter the contest. The link is in the description of this video. And the secret word is William. So that's William, but with wool instead of will. That is the secret word for this week. And the third thing I was going to mention is what? Mention the Patreon. Mention that. There was something else as well. Thumbs up. Give the video a thumbs up. Yeah, give the video a thumbs up. And if you're watching this back afterwards, please leave me a comment. Those comments, I know it's a thing that all content creators say, like and subscribe, leave me a comment. It really does help. If you look at the way that the algorithm works, people leaving comments on videos really helps. It helps get the video more attention, and it helps me. But I also like reading people's comments and what they think about it. So yes, head on over to the guild. Don't forget about the guild. There's going to be there's 3 questions on the guild. Those questions are probably there already, so I will be looking at those answers later on. Yeah, I think that's everything. So the next Q&A will be on, let me just look, it will be the Wednesday after GridCon. So it will be the 20th. Yes, GridCon is the 15th to the 17th of November. So the next Q&A will be Wednesday the 20th of November, and that will be the Wednesday after GridCon, assuming we survive it. We should do. We should do. And for those of you coming to GridCon, I will see you there. It's in 3 weeks' time. Gulp. But for those of you that want to know what's coming up on the channel soon, this Friday, I will be doing a live stream of World Order, but it won't be public. This will be a Patreon exclusive. I am filming the video on Friday, but the publisher has asked me not to make the video public because it's a bit too soon before their Kickstarter campaign. So it will be live for Patreon supporters. World Order, the new game from Hegemonic Games Studios, whatever they're called. But don't worry, you will, if you're not a Patreon supporter, you will get to see that video just maybe a couple of weeks later. But this Saturday, this is the big one. This has been 3 months in preparation, and this is live to the public. Elder Scrolls, Betrayal of the Second Era, from Chip Theory Games. We are doing a full session playthrough on Saturday afternoon, starting at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you're interested in that, that is happening on Saturday. And then I'll let you know about next week's content at the start of next week. But that's everything for now. So yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. Take care, and I will see you all next time. Bye-byes. Okay, well, the button's not working, so I don't know why the button's not working. Bear with us a minute. Let's try. No, the button's not working. Right, I'm going to have to do this manually. Wow, I've not done this manually for a while. Where is the button? It is